Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. 2 webinars in 1 week. It's been a crazy week, but it's been a crazy couple weeks with this COVID stuff going on. Once again, my name is Ray Rossini with OIT. This is our Partner First video. Today we have our MSP royalty, Ernest Murray. He loves it when I say that. Ernest Murray of Genuine Technology. Ernest, why don't you introduce yourself to those that don't know?
Hey everybody, my name is Ernest Murray. I'm one of the co-founders of Genuine Technology Group. Business partner Nate and I joined forces and started the company about 3 years ago. We're based out of Portland, Oregon. Run a small MSP up here and taking care of business, trying to get through this crazy time.
Yeah, crazy, no kidding, crazy time, right? I mean, here, especially nowadays, we have our customers that have those exact same requirements. They need PCs, they need servers. If we're lucky enough to even get stock of this stuff, the next question is, how do we get it to them?
Right.
That's a little nuts. And so, we're wondering, how do we do this? And you have a few answers for how we do this, right?
Yeah, Intune is really interesting. We started really diving into it about a year ago, and Microsoft's made massive improvements on its accessibility and cost-wise and packages and bundles, how to get access to it. When I first heard about it a couple of years ago, it was one of those deals where I'm like, it's Microsoft's poor attempt at an RMM or something. And I didn't really understand how it fit into the MSP stack and the MSP style. And I think it's really come a long way. It's not something to replace any of your existing tools. It is something to add on top of them. But it can really help, especially in this day and age with what we're dealing with remote-wise.
Awesome. And you're going to teach us how to do exactly that, right?
Yes. Yep.
So before we get started, there's a lot of questions around, around Intune and AutoPilot. It seems to be a little bit of a little bit of voodoo, a little bit of black magic. But if it works right, as I understand it, this is order from your distributor, from Dell, from whatever you're doing, ship directly to the client. They enter their email address and they're good, right?
That can be set up that way, yes. So what Intune does, Intune is an out-of-the-box preparation tool. So it's far better. So a lot of folks out there, you get a new computer for your client. You bring it into the shop or the office, you set it up, and you do your normal stuff to it. You install your tool set, you get your RMM, AV, et cetera, installed on it. For those of you who are awesome out there, you've already automated that process, either through your RMM or you've done it through various imaging tools, that sort of thing. The problem is it's a one-time setup, and it also takes tech time. So you've got a tech that has to unbox it, set it on the desk, set it, pull it out, get it all running, and then they're there for what, an hour and a half, trying to get it prepped and ready to go and get all the updates done on it. And they got to constantly come back and look at it again and go through it. So it takes time. What Intune does is Intune allows you to either directly from the manufacturer using a feature called AutoPilot, which we'll go over briefly. You can get a code from the manufacturer, put it into Intune, into AutoPilot, and AutoPilot will join it to Azure AD out of the box, apply all of the settings and applications that you want, and basically bring up a system that's ready to use for the end user. Intune by itself, AutoPilot is just a way to enroll a device in Intune. Intune is the meat. The Intune is where all of that configuration takes place. And you'll notice some familiar things as we start to go through it, but that's really what it's for. It's there to help you deploy and standardize. And that's really the other key, is standardization. Because it's constantly enrolled and checking in with Intune, if you change something, your RMM changes, your AV changes, whatever, you go and push those updates through Intune, or your configuration changes, Intune will deploy that across all of the clients' systems.
Very cool. So without much further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it.
All righty. Get my screen shared out there. Assuming that worked. So what we're seeing here, the first thing I want to go over is license requirements. So we prefer using the Microsoft 365 business license. It's a $20 retail license. So if you're using E3, it's an easy swap over. It includes a whole bunch of stuff that Microsoft has, including Intune. You can, however, add the Enterprise Mobility and Security license on top of an existing Office 365 license to gain access to Intune. So you'll see in our demo account here, our testing training account, I've got 365 Business and don't worry about the Zero AD Premium P2. That's something else we're using for training.
So it's Microsoft 365. Is that comparable to the E3 as far as the feature set you're getting?
It is comparable to E3. There's a couple of things on the legal side, like legal hold and e-discovery, that are gimped a little bit, and there's a few little features that they've pulled out of it that are mainly for the enterprise side, but it has all of your core features and functionality that you'd have in E3, including, which is the most important, I think, email encryption.
Nice.
Now, one of the first questions we get is, where is Intune? Because you don't see it anywhere in here. Intune is hiding under Microsoft, under the Azure portal. So it's part of the portal.azure.com. And when you come in here, you're not going to find it. You'll see I've got it here. It's just because I visited it to make sure it was there. You do have to search for it because it hides from you. And
something of note before we move further, one of the key differentiators of the Microsoft 365 packages is they include the OS license, not just the applications and all this other stuff, right?
That's true. So the Microsoft 365 does include an Microsoft Windows 10 Business upgrade license. Upgrade license means that you do have to have a previous version of Windows Pro already licensed on the machine. So Windows 7, Windows 8 has to already be licensed on the machine, or Windows 10 Pro. And then this can be used as an upgrade license. There's a few additional features and controls that they've included in it. It's kind of a half step between Pro and Enterprise, and Business sits in there. It's not an official SKU. You won't find it on any Microsoft lists, but they do enable some additional features.
And Business is that middle ground between Pro and Enterprise, right? Something
Correct.
to that effect? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
So the first thing I'll show you here is device enrollment. And this is where we dive into the autopilot side. So you'll notice that the autopilot deployment program is set up down here. We'll go in real quickly and create a default profile. Now again, autopilot is simply a way to enroll a device into Intune. It is a subset feature. They're often mentioned as like Intune, autopilot. They are not two separate features. Autopilot is something that's used to enroll a device in Intune. I'm going to note here that we're going to convert all targeted devices to autopilot. So that means that if something is joined to Intune and it matches this profile, it's automatically going to be enrolled in autopilot as well. And that's important for down the road, because there's some things you can do remotely, including fully wiping a system and reloading the OS remotely with just pushing a couple of buttons in the Intune portal. Out-of-box experience, there's a couple of ways you can do user-driven or self-deploying. So we're going to use self-deploying here just because it makes it a lot easier. One of the cool things here, you can apply a name template. So if you want to utilize a name template, device naming template, you can do that here under autopilot as well. Assignments, we're going to set all devices. You could do it to selected groups if you have things grouped out in Active Directory, but you can go and dive into that on your own. And there we go. Autopilot deployment profile is configured. Now, well, let me hop back over there real quick. If you're ordering something from a manufacturer like Dell or whoever, you can request from them a list of device IDs, and some of them will have the ability to directly connect to Intune and drop these in there for you automatically. They can also send you a CSV file that you can upload here that contains the serial number of all the devices that are coming in, and that will register those hardware devices with Intune and autopilot before you even pull them out of the box.
That is pretty cool.
Great for shipping things off directly to a client. All right, first thing we're going to do is dive into, I'm going to skip over the compliance section. It's not really anything in there. So we're looking at practical today. How do you practically apply this? I'm not doing an in-depth review of this, and I'm by no means an MVP or some super expert on Intune. So I'm more the functional professional, we'll call it. We'll jump under device configuration. This is kind of the meat and potatoes of things. You can deploy scripts, so you could deploy a PowerShell script, for example, utilizing Intune. And the thing we're going to focus on today is under profiles. So we're going to create a profile. We're going to go Windows 10 or later. We're going to do administrative templates. And this is going to take us to the template screen. We are going to call this first one OneDrive.
And you're doing multiple templates per PC, I mean, or per application, or what defines a template?
A template, so think of a template. Does this look familiar to you a bit, Ray?
Yeah, it's like GPO, yeah.
Exactly. So think of a template as a GPO. That's what it is.
That makes
So you
sense.
can define the settings in here. We're defining this one as OneDrive, so we're going to set up our settings for OneDrive within this. And this look here, by the way, is brand new. This only came out, I think, last week or the week before. So this is fairly new stuff here. All right, first thing we're going to do is go to silently move Windows known folders to OneDrive. We've got to grab the template ID here, and we don't want it to show notifications, so we say OK. That one is set up. Silently sign users in. We're going to say yes. So what this is going to do is this is going to automatically, once OneDrive is installed, sign the user into OneDrive, and then it's going to redirect their files over to OneDrive. We're going to enable the files on demand, so it's not going to synchronize everything down. And then we're going to hop down here to users. And we're going to say, which one did I want here? Disable the tutorial that appears at the end of the OneDrive setup. So again, we're trying to set up this workstation so the user can just pull it out, log directly into it, and be ready to go. We don't want a bunch of pops or prompts or things coming up. So that concludes the OneDrive setup. And we go through. You can apply scope tags. That's, again, another more advanced topic on the Intune side that we're going to skip over for now. And assignments. Now, assignments is really important. This is how, in an Active Directory setup, you would assign something to a GPO or to an OU, something that structures out how you want those applied. In this case, we're going to do all users and groups. You can also assign this to specific groups. Now, in our case here, we had a mix of both user and computer configuration. So we have to do this to both users and devices in order to properly assign it. And there we go. There's our first profile created. Now I'm going to set up a second profile. Also under
if you can, so those platforms real quick, I noticed there was some mobile devices too. Is that because of the EMS portion, or, I mean, how far does this reach?
That's a great question. I have not done a deep dive into what this can do on the Android, iOS, or Mac side. I've only messed with it on the Windows side. There is a lot of features and functionality within Intune. But yeah, you can apply Android settings through Intune as well.
So next webinar, you're saying? Gotcha.
Yeah, next webinar. After I've had a chance to play with it. Now, one of the other things I want to show you here real quick, this is the list of profile settings. I want to highlight down here that both VPN and Wi-Fi are options. So what this means is that if you've got a laptop you're deploying, you can actually deploy the user's, the client's Wi-Fi credentials directly to the device and manage them from here.
That is impressive.
Which is really nice. And you also notice a domain join. You can do a hybrid join, which allows the system to be joined to both their local Active Directory as well as Azure AD. So Intune and AutoPilot can automatically enroll a system on and join it to the local domain when it turns on.
Nice.
I'm going to create one for Edge. Hop down here under user configuration, and you'll notice Microsoft Edge. Now, there's two settings here for Edge. There's Edge, and then there's Edge default settings users can override. We're going to live in this section for simplicity today, but you can deploy these settings as well under this option here, which allows, it sets the defaults initially and then allows the user to override them if they don't like what defaults that you've set. Which, users, they can be picky sometimes.
No, that never happens. But it's nice to have that amount of flexibility.
It is. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to say this is the new Edge. This is the Chromium-based Edge. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to force users to sign into the browser. This means that it's going to, when it first pops open, it's going to require that they log into it. We're going to hide the first run experience and splash screen because, again, we're trying to eliminate the amount of noise that they get. Here under, we're going to jump down to the startup section and pretty much just kind of run through the startup section. So action to take on startup, we're going to want a new tab. We're going to configure the new tab homepage. So we'll set this to our portal. This is a Cloud Radial portal that we have set up. We're going to hide the default top sites because otherwise it just shows a bunch of junk that you don't want. This is kind of nice. You can set a company logo if you want to as well on the homepage.
You got to get that branding in there, right? And it's super important.
Exactly.
Whether you're going to have that Happy Man logo or that genuine technology.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. What was the other one I wanted to set up? The configure new tab. I think that's good enough. We'll just do that. Oh, we'll set up a quick link here. That was one I wanted to do. So this will force a link on Edge when it first opens as well. All right, so we've configured that one. I'm not going to do any scope tags. Again, this is really important. You've got to set an assignment. If you don't assign it to anything, it's not going to deploy to anything. And again, so now we've got a couple of administrative templates set up. You'll notice over here it says assigned. So we've got Edge and OneDrive. That makes sense to you, Ray?
That makes absolute sense to me. It's nice, logical, the same way we do GPOs. You don't want to put everything in one policy. It's nice.
It's pretty handy. So the next thing we're going to do is look at how to deploy applications. So we can use Intune to push some applications. Now, traditionally, you would use this to push, say, your RMM, and then allow your RMM to do the rest of the setup. You could also deploy some client-specific applications if you don't want to have to create scripts through your RMM for those. So we'll hop over into Client Apps, and I'm going to run all the way down here toward the bottom to this Microsoft Store for Business. There's a reason I'm doing this, and this is one of the most awesome parts of Intune, in my opinion. I've already activated it, which is just a matter of hitting Enable and then Save, just so that we could get this rolling, because that can take a little while. I'm going to pop open the Microsoft Store here. And the first thing we're going to do is hunt for Mail and Calendar. How many times have you gone to a customer location and it's got, Windows 10 has the little built-in mail app and it's down there in the corner, and the user has gone through and enabled that and set up their email through that instead of Outlook? You ever seen that? It's quite annoying to me. I think you're muted, Ray, by the way.
I am muted. I'm absolutely muted. I'm giving color commentary by myself. But had you not said anything, you're the only one that could see me, so nobody would have said anything. But yeah, I was saying, yeah, you have that. They set up the same thing. You get these double notifications, you get these flags coming up, and you go to set up your stuff, and now they have 2 mail profiles set up. It's a real pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's not much fun at all. So I ran through that step, the process there for that one pretty quickly. So the other thing, I'll do this a little bit slower for this one. Microsoft Sticky Notes is another one, because the sticky notes don't get saved and moved from computer to computer. So it drives me nuts when somebody's got sticky notes and you're going to move them to a new computer and then their sticky notes aren't there, and it causes more tickets and issues. So one of the things, I'm looking for this in the business store here. I'm clicking on Get the App. This is going to add it to the inventory or to the local store within Microsoft that's specific to this client. I'm going to go into Manage, and I'm going to make it Private Store Availability. This part's important, or it won't show up in the Intune portal for some reason. How about the Xbox Console Companion? You ever see that pop up in Windows 10?
That's not completely necessary, just like the iTunes stuff?
Exactly. And the Xbox Game Bar. So I'm going to pop these in there, and you'll see why I'm doing this here in a minute. You'd think, oh, is this for you can deploy it? It is so I can deploy it, but Intune's got a nice little setting here that we'll go over. And then finally, the last thing I'm going to do is pop over here to Keeper Password Manager. Keeper Password Manager is one that we use, and I grabbed the wrong one.
And we have Lee Gribbins makes a comment too that the Xbox app was causing issues with SSTP VPNs as of 1903's update. So if you hadn't been removing it, make sure to remove it.
Absolutely. And that's hard to do because those apps are done on a per user basis. So unless you log in as each user and remove it, it causes problems. All right, so we've added a bunch of apps there from the business store. We're going to hop back over to Intune. We're going to hit sync. Now, one of the things I should notice here, I am logged in as the company admin. I'm not going through my CSP portal. You can do most of this through your CSP portal, most of the setup and management of this. However, the business store, you have to be logged in specifically as, you have to be logged in properly in order for that to work as the local admin to do that. All right, let's hop back over to apps. Oh, look, there's everything and a couple of more. Now let's go find that pesky mail and calendar app. I'm going to go over here to properties. I'm going to go to assignments. Look, you see this nice little uninstall section here?
Wow, that's sweet.
I want it gone from all users, all devices. We're going to hop over into Keeper. We're going to go the opposite direction with this one because we want Keeper installed. So under the required, we're going to say all users, all devices. Now you could say available, and it just makes it available in the store for people to choose whether they want it installed or not. Traditionally, we just either require it or uninstall it. Because you don't want users making decisions. Let's go into Xbox. And again, we're going to uninstall from all users, all devices. Hop back over, I think it was, this one was next. Uninstall, all users, all devices. So what do you think, Ray? Looks pretty powerful?
It's pretty powerful. I mean, I remember the days of setting up, WDT in my office and having to get all this stuff done in the office, and that was not fun. This seems a lot easier.
They've certainly made the process much simpler, which I greatly appreciate. Okay, so that's the last one there. Now the next thing we're going to do, under apps, there's an add button up here at the top. The business store isn't the only thing you can do with Intune. So let's take a look at the other types of applications. You'll notice that Android, iOS is listed in here. The first thing we're going to do is set up Office 365 Suite. Pre-fills all of that for us, which is nice. They have a configuration designer. You can select what apps you want to push.
So you don't even have to do the XML if you don't want to.
Exactly. You can select other applications, and remember that you can assign this on a group basis. So if you have a group specifically that allows Visio, you can actually push Visio for that group. So if that user logs into a computer and it goes, oh, they need Visio, it'll automatically install it for them. You can choose your architecture. You can choose your update channel, which is nice. Just do monthly here. I tend to do shared computer activation on everything just because, why not? And then the Microsoft software terms, we're going to accept those as well. Assign this to, and we'll just do all users, all devices. Typically, you just have to do devices there because Office is a per device install, not per user, so it's not strictly necessary. All right, next thing we're going to do is run down here to Microsoft Edge. So this is the new version of Edge. We're going to want that installed as well. And again, Microsoft helpfully pre-fills everything. You can choose your channel, choose your language if you want, and then scope tags and assignments. And there we go. So that's done. Now we get into the more of the fun stuff. Windows 32 apps and line of business apps. These are the other two that you can utilize heavily. We're going to start with line of business apps. These are going to be other applications that you want to install. So we'll pop this open. We're going to go to my Intune demo folder, and I've got 7-zip and I've got our ConnectWise control. So hard not to say Screen Connect. So we'll start with this one.
Yeah, I'm still saying Lab Tech. You can't get me to switch.
Exactly. It is important to make sure you choose this yes option on ignore app version. That way, if the app updates, it's not sitting there uninstalling, reinstalling, or reporting wrong information. And I'm just going to copy this stuff down the line here. And again, we'll say all users, all devices. Done. So now we'll hop back over here, and we're going to go to the same place again, line of business app. And this time we're going to choose 7-zip. And we'll run through that real quick. Ignore app version so it doesn't notify, it just tells whether it's installed. And again, I should be doing just all devices here. The all users does not make a difference since these applications are per system. They're for the whole system. All right, now let's look at the next one here. Windows apps, Win32 apps, otherwise known as executables. When you go to select a package file here, you're going to notice that exe is not in the list of acceptable items here. This actually has to be packaged before you can upload it. So you've got to turn it into an Intune Win file. Now, the way that you do that, you'll notice in my directory folder here, I've got a separate folder for Portal Installer. So this is for one of the applications that we install for Cloud Radio. And this is an executable. You can't just directly upload an executable. You've got to package it first. So Microsoft has made this handy little app, and I'm going to drop the, it's actually a GitHub link, so I can find where chat went. Well, we'll put it in maybe in the description of the video. There's a website you can go to download this tool.
Nice, and we'll make sure we put that out also in the when we send out the recording.
Perfect. So first thing it asks for is specify the source. It's going to ask for the name of the setup file. And then it's going to ask for a destination. Now, the nice thing about this, it's going to grab everything that's inside of this folder. So if you've got other configuration files or it's a whole installer that's got all the DLL files and everything in it, it's going to grab the whole package. That's why it's asking for that source folder. In our case, we're doing a simple one with just the executable. So I'm going to set the output folder to the same as the source folder. Traditionally, you would not do this.
Okay. Any gotchas, any applications you've had issues doing this with?
None. It works really, really well.
Wow.
So you can see it just quickly went through and it packaged that up for us. Now if we come back here, go into our portal installer, there's this is the Intune Win file that we just created. And we're just going to upload it. It's already got some stuff in here, so we'll just copy that on down. The program itself, it asks for an install command. So what does it run during to actually run the installer? And we're just going to give it that, and I'm going to give it this. So if you had other arguments to put at the end of this, like silent or other types of behaviors, you could definitely do that. You can set up requirements. Is this a Windows 32 or 64? I'm going to select both. And then what's the minimum version of Windows you want to install this on? So you see there's a lot more options here when you're going through this process. You can choose how much disk space is available, how much RAM the system has, how many CPUs. So you can really fine tune what this program is being installed on. And then you finally have to set up a manual detection rule to say, how do I know that this file, that this program installed correctly? And in this case, I'm just going to, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say, hey, if the system32 folder exists, then we're going to call it good. Traditionally, you would set this to the actual executable of the file, just so that Intune's able to say, yes, that file does exist, or the date it was modified, or the version of it, or the size of it. There's a lot of ways. That way, if you update it in the future, it's able to go back and say, oh, I need to update this because it's an older version of the application.
So somebody brought up something, Dave brought up something in chat. He says, for these applications, you're putting to uninstall, not required install. Is that intentional?
For uninstall, yeah, it was intentional that I was putting them as uninstall because I want them to go away. I don't want them installed in the Windows template, if I'm understanding that correctly. So again, we're going to assign this to all users, all devices, and then we're going to create. So there we go. Now we've got a whole bunch of applications set up here. Some are going to install, some are going to uninstall. And in general, we are ready to move on to the actual joining of the system. That makes sense, Ray? Everything looking good from your side?
I watch this and I get this creepy feeling that Microsoft is trying to make things easier for us. You know?
Well, here's the thing. They are making things easier for us. However, this is not multi-tenant. This cannot replace your RMM tool. This cannot replace any of the
Okay.
tools that are in your MSP stack. It can be used in addition to them. It can be used to help set up that client-specific, perfect system, the imaging, if you will, for this specific client.
So you're going to have to go into each client's tenant to do this when you assign them
Correct.
Microsoft 365, right? You can't do this delegated admin, can't do the CSP portal.
I
That's
mean, you
still
can
not
go into
too
your
bad.
CSP portal and there's a link that'll take you directly to Intune. So you can manage
Right.
it from there, but it's not a global view. You can't just easily switch between clients.
Okay. And not to jump ahead, I just want to take advantage of the point here.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had asked, are you able to export and import templates of these? Because I imagine there's a lot you're repeating. Or is it all click every client?
There's not a way that I have found to import or export templates. I wish there was, and if it exists out there and I haven't found it yet, somebody tell me. But as far as I know, there isn't a way to do that.
If I know the internet, somebody will post something on a blog post somewhere saying, I found this way to do it. You're going to use PowerShell and chicken legs. And they're going to have some way to do it.
So I have a Windows.
Go ahead, man.
I have a Windows 10 VM set up here. I just wanted to mention, and that's what I'm logging into right now, is a Windows 10 VM, and I'm logging in. It's a fresh, brand new Windows 10 install of the latest, and so we're logging into a live computer here to get this set up. And while this goes through its process,
and of course, it's being brought to my attention. I'm sure Kelvin will put out a blog how to do this all in PowerShell. Just wait till Sunday. We'll see it live.
Right? That man. He's amazing. All right, so let's start diving into some Q&A while this is starting up. So what you're going to notice here is that it's going to go through a traditional Windows 10 setup. All I've done is put in my email address and password. So it's going to go through that, your normal Windows 10 startup process. It's going to pop us onto the desktop, and then it's going to start doing a bunch of stuff in the background. And I'll pop open Task Manager so you can see the tasks that are running and how that's working as well.
And this is something the client's doing. You don't even have to be there at this point.
You don't. No, the client can just put in their username and password and go take a lunch break. When they come back, their computer will be ready to roll.
Nice. So yeah, let's go ahead and take advantage of some questions while this is going on. So one of the first questions I see, Robert Logan asks, can you get serial numbers for AutoPilot when purchasing through your distributors, your Synix, Tech Data, Carbon Sys? You use Carbon, don't you?
We do. Carbon Systems, yes, they are actually Microsoft certified now, and they've gone through a whole bunch of stuff. So they're actually like embedding your Windows license key into the BIOS, which is something I had to get certified to do. And yes, they can send you the Intune files as well to be able to import. I don't know about Synix or the rest of them, but definitely through Carbon Systems you can.
Nice. And then I saw a question here about how to find your organization ID.
Organization ID, that's a wonderful question. So that is going to be under your Azure Active Directory. There's a couple of ways to find it. Your CSP portal will list it very easily, but it's right here on the Azure Active Directory. It's the tenant ID is listed right here.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and I apologize for this in advance.
No.
Mr. Limey McLimeface, or as we like to call him, Kelvin. So, and he called me out on this. He says, Ray, you said you'll answer everything at the end. How long did it take before you decided on your mustache style? I'll go with you first, since you have less facial hair than I do.
Oh, I just wanted something different. Major life changes required major physical changes too, so.
I think we all have a lot of cabin fever at the moment, so we're just finding different ways to account for it, to make up for it. We went through the templates question, and that's just me. This started as a Movember thing like a month early last year, and once it stopped being itchy, I just stopped caring. I think I should get some Just for Men or something here, but we'll see. So one of the questions, we still have some people using MDT due to advanced customizations. When do you think what's the point where you say, I should do this MDT, I should do this autopilot? Where's that point that you cross over?
I think that at this point, everything can be done through, the majority can be done through Intune. If you're dealing with probably with hundreds of systems, you might want to look at a different solution. When you're dealing with installing one or two here and there, this is a fantastic solution. So if you're in an enterprise, this may not work terribly well for you, at least not for the initial rollout, but it is something that can dovetail on after you've done a big push. But again, because it is taking bandwidth, right? Every single system, you're not deploying from a local image. Maybe if your client has really small bandwidth, if you're on DSL still, this would not be a fantastic use of your time.
And there's no concept here of local caching like there is with your RMM, you know, automate lab tech.
There is, to an extent, there is some. I mean, you can utilize PowerShell scripts or utilize other ways of pulling the data, but through the setup process that I just showed you, that setup process is going to download those files. So the files that I created and the files that I uploaded the installers, those actually were uploaded to Azure, and now it's in the process of downloading them onto the local system while it's loading. And Ray seems to have froze. I don't know if that's just me or if that's him. Yeah, we're gonna skip the Windows hello. This is all, welcome back, sir. He's coming back. Welcome back. So one of the nice things about AutoPilot, if I was deploying this through AutoPilot instead of just doing a Intune join, is that AutoPilot would have skipped the Windows hello and some of the screens we're seeing here. Let's see, what other questions do we have? How do you feel about still logging in and out to manage the Intune for each client when not using Azure Lighthouse? So I have not done a deep dive. I haven't done any dive actually into Azure Lighthouse. Again, most of this can be done through your CSP portal. So you don't really have to, you don't have to log in and out of the client unless you really want to. But you certainly can do that if you need to. Some of the settings, the only setting like the Microsoft Store for Business is the only one I know that you have to log into the portal as the client. There's that one. What's the next question? Ingram now allows you to get the device ID from the portal. So that's really cool. I didn't know that about Ingram. And Dom just let us know Azure Lighthouse does not apply to Intune. So it's more for the infrastructure side.
Gotcha. So those of you that didn't notice, my PC crashed in the middle of this, so I
Oh,
frantically went to dial in from Zoom on my desk phone. So if anybody's wondering why I'm wearing a headset now, that's why.
Welcome back.
Thanks.
Can you make defaults? This can play nicely with hybrid joined. Yes. So local AD and Azure AD joined. This does play very nicely with that as well. Do you ever hit your head on that the slanted ceiling up here? This one? Do I ever hit my head on that slanted ceiling? Yes, I do. How does app deployment work with something like Ninite? So this would be something where you could set up maybe the Ninite installer to run so that you can manage it from the Ninite portal if you wanted to. It's not something that you would deploy the initial apps. And yes, I know it's saying that because I skipped things. Yeah, and here we are logging in.
I saw something here. Did you answer the Nuvalux question that Nuvalux was supposed to make Azure stuff multi-tenant?
You know, I dove into that a little bit, and I was not impressed with the product. It might have moved on since then, but I did not find it easy to use. I couldn't figure out how to. I mean, it looked like there were some settings that were available, but it didn't look very in-depth in terms of the settings that were available, and that's maybe because I need to do a better demo with them.
Gotcha.
But I didn't see any Intune stuff listed in there. So one of the things I want to point out here real quick is you notice this mail icon here on the Windows 10 system that just came up. I kind of want you to keep an eye on that as the system continues to load. So Windows just finished loading. I'm going to pop open Task Manager here.
And that's one of the things we were talking about initially, right? There's no progress bars. There's no. It's supposed to happen seamlessly. The client's not supposed to know anything's going on. It's just happening.
Exactly. Yep. It's just happening in the background. You'll see that OneDrive setup's running right now. You know, it's pegged out on our processor usage. So we'll keep an eye on that and keep going back through.
And I see Joe Freer asked a question. It looks like a second half to a first question. To skip Windows Hello as part of the policy setup, is that an option?
Yes, it is. And I'll show you that here. I'm going to hop back to Intune. We are in Azure. I don't want Azure. I want Intune. Under Device Enrollment, under Windows Enrollment, under Windows Hello for Business, I can disable that and make it go away.
Wow. So, and not sure how I feel about the question, but I'll ask it because it was asked. Is there a way, I have a feeling you saw the same question. Is there a way to have the initial experience not prompt a user for the password? We use Jump Cloud currently. I'm not sure how to.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
You have to use the full autopilot. Well, sort of. You have to utilize the full autopilot Intune setup, and you can actually assign a device then to a specific user before it's shipped. So when it comes out of the box, it's actually going to come up and say, "Hello, Sally," and it's going to have their name and everything in there. They still have to type in their password initially, but it is a more customized end user experience. Unless you're doing like a kiosk machine. You can set up kiosk mode through Intune, which will automatically deploy the system direct to the desktop with whatever limited applications you've told it to run.
Okay, that makes sense. And we see here stuff is still going on, still installing.
Yep, OneDrive's still running at the moment.
Going a little nuts, which
You'll
is good.
see this.
It's expected, right?
It is expected. You'll see this OMA-DM client. This is the Intune process that's running in the background, managing all of this. So it's making sure that the installers don't run over the top of each other, that it's running things in a specific order.
That makes sense. Yeah, so you don't have any contention, anything breaking something else, setup collisions, that kind of stuff.
Yep. What was another question here? Don wants me to talk a bit more about the white glove out of box experience. It is very valuable. He says it's very valuable if there are any fat apps to be deployed. So yeah, the white glove out of box experience, if you're that's the one where we went through and we had the selection between the user driven and just the white glove skip everything option, the automatic setup. If you're pulling a system out of the box and it's been registered with Intune and all of that stuff was set up beforehand, which this demo was not, what you will experience is that it will come up with progress bars and say this application's being installed, and it does step the user through that whole setup process as it's going through it. It's not something that that I've had much luck with lately, but Dom wanted me to mention that it does work that way. Have I had issues?
For those of you that don't know, Dom Kirby actually works at PAX 8, which is one of our beloved distributors. So if you have any questions, and we're talking about maybe getting him on a webinar in the future, since he lives Microsoft.
He can dive into this stuff so much deeper than I can because he lives it and breathes it every day. Again, I'm a functional professional, by no means an expert in what we're doing here. I just use it every day so I can show you how to set it up and get the most out of it real quick.
Absolutely. And Dom was one of us. He had his own MSP and then went to go work for a big corporate, but he didn't sell his soul. He went to go work for PAX 8, which, I don't call that selling out. I call that moving up.
Yep.
He's not a trainer like me. Whatchamacallit? What was this? And I think this is the longest I've ever seen Dom go without saying the words modern workplace. So I'll give him that.
Right?
I'll give him that credit. Oh, there he goes. Modern workplace.
He gets to say it every day to his coworkers.
Right? So guys, if you have any more questions, now's the perfect time to bring them up. Absolutely.
One asked here, when a user signs in initially, are they a standard users or admin users? Tested this a long time ago, and you had to flip them to standard. By default now, they are standard users, and that is something, yeah, OneDrive is taking a long time. That is something that they are standard users by default now, unless they're global administrators. Then they're administrators on the local machine. That is a setting that you can control in Intune. It is actually an option to make whoever first signs into the computer an admin user.
So one of the things, anybody that's heard about me switching from Slack to Teams, I put it on my staff within 24 hours, said we're moving. They've heard me complain about the Azure propagation. Yeah, I like to torture them on the regular. But they've heard me talk about we've seen delayed Teams notifications. We've seen delayed Azure propagation with license assignments, stuff like that. It was pretty surprising to me that the minute you logged in, we started seeing activity. Is that your general experience, that, you know, we're not waiting 2 to 24 years for propagation?
Depends on the settings. So one of the settings I really, really, really wish was instant. You do have the option and ability to push SharePoint libraries and force them to sync through the OneDrive client. I wish that was instant. It's not. Microsoft has said that due to to even out load on their systems, that it could take up to 6 hours for that setting to deploy. But they do have a setting where you can actually synchronize SharePoint libraries directly to a folder using the OneDrive app. And that is the only process that I've seen that takes a while.
And does that actually work? Because, I mean, you're saying it, so I'm sure it works, but we've tried PowerShell, we've tried to deploy this automatically for a while now, and have never had good luck. We haven't done Intune though, so maybe that's the part we're missing.
Yeah, through Intune it does work, but it can take a while. I'm just gonna pop into where do I want to go? Configuration settings here, just to show that option does exist, and it's kind of nice because you can do it on a per user basis. All settings.
What was that, Dom? Anybody that sends a request, you're going to send them PAX 8 socks? What was that?
Forget the name of it here, but yeah, there is a setting in here where you can sync, so like you can synchronize SharePoint live. I mean, there's all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, Kelvin brings up a good point. He says it actually syncs the registry keys immediately, but OneDrive takes between 1 and 12 years. I think you're being a little, generous on OneDrive, but
yeah,
between 1 and 12 years to actually sync.
Right. Yeah. It's not much fun.
So how long have you been using, because this stuff is fairly new, I want to say, I mean, this isn't 10-year-old stuff. How long have you been doing AutoTune and AutoPilot and Intune?
We started about a little over a year ago when we started working with a large company that has multiple locations across multiple sites, and they didn't want Active Directory infrastructure, and they already had the Microsoft 365 business licenses. And that's when we really started diving deep into Intune and understanding it, because I didn't want to have to manage hundreds of computers across multiple states without it.
Oh, come on. Yeah. I mean, you want to go in front of every single computer and install manually, doesn't everybody?
Yeah. No thanks.
So, yeah, and of course, John Schultz at Pinnacle Technology is quick to point out, if I was using Teams, my computer would not have crashed. He's probably not wrong.
Yep. So do we have any other questions or anything else that's come up, or are we just waiting for this thing to finish doing its job?
Or what do you guys think? I mean, how many of you guys are actually using this, right? I mean, how many, I mean, I know you're always quick to you're very close to the bleeding edge and trying the stuff out for us and seeing what works and what doesn't, but how many of you other MSPs, maybe I'll put a poll up and see, who's doing what here. Of course, I'm doing this on the other computer.
Yeah, Cliff, I know. You're right. I should have given it more processor power. I thought I had, but oops.
So does the auto setup of OneDrive and other apps work seamlessly with Microsoft's MFA? That's a really good question.
That is a good question. I have not noticed, because Windows itself does not ask for MFA when you're logging in. Dom says it does play nicely. I've never seen it prompt for MFA, so that's a very good question. That could be a potential issue there. When a user first signs in during out-of-box experience, it'll prompt for MFA, is what Dave says. And I haven't experienced that, but I'll defer to them on it.
And how do you roll this out? Adam brings up a good point. How do you roll this out to existing computers? I mean, you see, this is pretty obvious for new builds, but what would be the process for existing?
That's a great question. What you can do is on Windows 10, you can hop into settings. And it's not going to give me the option here, but there is. I'll show you where the option will exist. Under settings and accounts and access work or school. There will be a link option over on the right-hand side that says something about adding it to MDM or joining it to MDM. And if you do that, then it joins it to Intune and starts deploying all the policies.
Okay. And we'll go ahead and get a poll question up while we're waiting for Intune and for this to go on. It's a quick question. Are you currently using AutoPilot and Intune today? I'm curious, you know, no, but I will be, or yes. We're waiting for those. Do you see it? How do you see it fail most often? Specific apps not deploying, any corrupt profiles, similar? That's a good question, Brett, because we don't have any status bars, any PowerShell errors in a try-catch loop. How do you tell if something fails, and where do you see those failures happen?
Great question. So Intune actually has a status board for all of that. Device assignment, we'll see if it hasn't shown up here yet. So there's assignment statuses and the ability to dive into each individual application and see how that application has deployed, whether it was successful or not. So you'll see a deployment status that shows up here, whether it was installed, not installed, failed, etc. And Intune keeps those they'll start to deploy them here. So you'll see top app installation failures. Now, the really nice thing about Intune is that it does auto retry. So if something fails, it doesn't just stop and give up. It does actually continue to try to fix itself, which was actually an issue last week at one of our clients that we just took over. The Intune had been set up with both 32-bit Office install and a 64-bit Office install, but the way that the rules were set up, some of them were user rules and some were computer rules, and so it was stuck in a loop where the computer would turn on and it would download and install the 64-bit version of Office, and then it would and then it would flip around when the user logged in, uninstall 64-bit and install 32-bit. So it just kept trying to fix itself by uninstalling and reinstalling them.
That's wild. That's crazy. Let me see. I think some of my clients would be shocked at $20 pricing. I don't see the issue. I mean, especially we're rolling out almost predominantly we're rolling out E3 to our MSP clients, but we've always included it as part of the per user. What about you, Ernest? Are you doing this just part of the included, or are you selling it separately?
Oh, you're right. I just said this wrong. Let's see. So let me modify my Office 365 setup because I messed that up there. So we're doing it as what we call our user productivity bundles. So we have a user productivity bundle that includes the Microsoft license, Office 365 backup, password manager, our user portal, user training. It's got a whole bunch of stuff packaged into it. And so we're selling this as part of that package. It's part of a user productivity bundle. It's not a separate line item that the user ever sees or that the client ever sees.
Gotcha. And Dom brings up the point on the note of Jump Cloud, AutoPilot can only join to Azure AD or hybrid join, so you won't be able to push Jump Cloud to machines. So good to know.
Okay. Yep.
Any recommendations from Dustin? Any recommendations on best practices on where to move deployment tasks between Intune versus RMM? Sounds like the MS stuff on Intune is much better for non-MS used RMM. So yeah, where do you define that? Or
that's a wonderful question. We do that based on what's global and what's specific to the user or that particular client. So if it's something that is specific to the client, I like to try and push it through Intune. That way Even if they choose not to use us down the road, all of that stuff lives with them. All that configuration lives with them. If it's something that's global that we're deploying across all of our clients or across our client base, then I prefer to use the RMM to push that.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's see here. And for those of you, I noticed the poll hasn't shown. I don't know why it hasn't shown. It's showing for me, but I can see in my reference monitor it's not. So if you are using Intune and you want to share any of your experiences, by all means, please put it in the chat. So Joe wants to know, why didn't it show connected to work since you joined it? Was it still processing?
Yeah, it's still processing. It's because I did not give this thing nearly enough processing power.
It's fair enough. To be fair, this happened with what was it, a 2 a.m. conversation that we had?
Yeah.
I said, hey, we started asking stuff back and forth in Discord, and like, hey, Ernest, you want to do a webinar in 4 days? And, turn his credit. He's like, yeah, let's do it. So
I was planning to record something anyway.
Have a syllabus.
So this works
exactly. Well. Blaine wants to know, are you also charging per device?
Yes. Yep. So we're doing a hybrid. We're doing both because that's the way our expenses are set up, and it gives the client more control. I had some price conversations with clients when I was doing we've tried strictly per user, we tried strictly per device, and there was always price conversations. Why is this $200 a user? Why is this X number per workstation? Because the numbers were big. And we found that by splitting it down to smaller numbers, it really, we haven't seen that price objection come up again.
That makes sense. Separately, maybe a little off topic, but I'm curious myself, what do you use for user training?
That is a great question. We utilize Ningio is for our security training. And then our portal, which is Cloud Radial, recently, like in the last week or so, integrated Bigger Brains. So Bigger Brains is right in our user portal as well.
Nice. I've never heard of Ningio. What is
Ningio,
that an LMS, a true LMS, or what is it?
Ningio, they produce videos, little short 3 to 4 minute episodes on various cybersecurity topics. They're very entertaining to watch, and I highly recommend them. They're really a lot of fun.
Very cool. So Dan DeMaio, our favorite happy man, says, maybe off topic, but for clients, this looks great for clients doing Microsoft applications, OneDrive, Word, Excel, etc. But with clients with traditional LOBs, like QuickBooks, or some access with a front-end database, how are you bridging that gap? Are you still doing it through here? Or are you doing RMM? What's the plan?
That's a great question, and it depends is the answer. So for clients QuickBooks, for example, QuickBooks cannot be automated. It just can't be.
Right.
You can't automate the installation and setup of QuickBooks. I really wish you could. That would make my life a whole lot easier. So it depends on the application. Yeah, right. So it really depends on the application. If the application allows you to automate the installation and configuration process, yes, it can be done through Intune. If it doesn't, then you still have to touch the machine manually. It just has to be part of the step and part of the process.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or, for example, we've got a client that has a database and you got to do ODBCs and all this other stuff. You can automate most of the setup. So you can have the ODBCs automatically created, have the registry entries automatically created. Then you just have to go in and run the installer or open the application and fix whatever needs to be done in the application itself.
Okay. Let's see.
Now we're moving and grooving.
So I see. Yeah, I see. It was that OneDrive, man. That OneDrive was just holding everything else back.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So OneDrive finally finished up, and you'll notice the little sync icon over here, and that it's down here in the corner. And again, it popped up. It did its thing. It's now synchronized. All of the folders are redirected, and I didn't touch anything other than logging in.
Dave says 2 a.m. conversations are typically not about webinars. Dave, you need to join our groups, man.
You do.
I know you're on MRU, but this is the kind of stuff we talk about. This and, you know, some other stuff. Yeah, of course, this is another one of Kelvin's blogs. We're gonna wait for the QuickBooks install and updating,
Yeah.
you know, in a blog to come. Poor Kelvin, man.
There was a way you could go in and modify the install file and set things up, but I think they've patched over all of that or made it so difficult to do. It's not worth it.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, and keep in mind, this is not a, you know, this is compared to E3, Microsoft 365 Business. These are comparable to Business Premium. You know, if you're rolling out Business Premium, there's a little bit of delta. If you're already doing E3, it's the same thing. You know what I mean? It's not a big deal.
Well, and here's the way to look at it. How are you billing your clients? Are you doing an all-you-can-eat type of setup where all of this workstation setup stuff is included? How much worker time does this save you? You know, how much time does it save you from having to go in and manually set everything up when you could just start up a computer and walk away for an hour?
Yeah.
That's really where we see the value in it. It does have value for the client as well, but the majority of this value is really for us in terms of reducing our costs and our overhead, and that's why we just bundle it. It's just required for our clients.
Well, that's really what it's all about, right? The MSP profitability comes from automation, from standardization. If you're doing it differently per client, if you're doing it manually per client, you're going to be broke by the end of the month.
Yeah.
You know, I think with this COVID stuff, this madness is going on, and Ernest is in ground zero, right? You're in Seattle, or you're in, not Seattle specifically, right? But you're.
I'm in Portland, a little bit south of Seattle. We're in Oregon, so a little bit south of them. Yeah, about 4 hours away.
Okay. Yeah, so you know, rough times, man. How's that cabin fever going? Is this the most people you've seen?
My kids are driving me nuts.
All of us,
we'll
man.
Just say that.
If teachers don't get a raise after this, I don't know what's going on. So I will take a little bit of opportunity, guys. We are hosting a virtual happy hour tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern. We actually have entertainment. We're not bringing the booze. Bring your own booze, but we are welcoming one and all to join this. I'll go ahead and put it in the chat if I can find the chat. But please, by all means, we're going to have a good time. We have some live music. We have some games. It actually should be pretty cool. So if you have time tonight, please go ahead and join. And also,
Fantastic.
if you have any recommendations for future webinars, definitely interested. What were you saying, Ernest?
That sounds fantastic. I'm looking forward to dropping in while I can.
Yeah, absolutely. And bring the kids. It doesn't matter. It's, it's all family at this point.
So you'll notice here that we're pulling down at 200 megabits per second. So it's in the process of downloading stuff now, and you've got the Office click to run installer that's going. So it's slow, but it's chugging along. All those settings we set up, all those applications we told it to install, they're running.
Yeah. So some of you, I wish I could put up polls. I just don't want to put up another one. It's not going to work. But some of you charge labor for a new computer setup, and I absolutely agree. I mean, if you're going to do that, that's a way to go. I'm not going to beat the per user, per device model or setup or not setup, because we'll be here till COVID's over. But but yeah, I mean, even if you're charging labor for setup, if you're charging an hour time, doesn't mean you want to be 60 minutes in front of the PC. You still want to automate that as much as possible. And these tools allow you to do so. It's
a great selling point for the client. Do you want to spend $300 for me to spend 2 hours setting up this computer, or do you want to upgrade to a $20 a month license? That's going to help me make that process a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. So we're at the top. We're a little over the top of the hour, so I want to be respectful of everybody's times, especially since in 2 hours and 53 minutes we're going to be back together in a webinar or a Zoom meeting. So with that, you want to leave us any parting thoughts? Anything else we should know?
No, I really appreciate you hosting this today. I hope this helps people out there who are interested in it or have thought about Intune. Hopefully this is a quick little primer to get you started. Go and investigate it. There's a lot you can do with it. I just barely tapped the surface of it.
Yeah, absolutely. This is really cool stuff. I apologize, guys, that I can't show my video, but it's odd with Zoom. Maybe next time we'll be a little more polished. We don't do polished, we do functional here. So
Yeah, right?
we got the good stuff. Ernest, thank you so much, man. This has been really enlightening. The webinar, the recording of the webinar will go out early next week to everybody. We'll post to YouTube, cleaned up version. And guys, go get automating, man. Go, save yourself some hours. And thanks to everybody that joined.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Bye.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. For more videos just like this one, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the alert icon so you get notified of new videos, or check out some of these videos below.